black on black on black on black. Whole squad on, used to dream about that. Never let up on my grind, content but never satisfied with the map black rims on a roller. Whole game unchanged, I told you. That's all my life, can't touch the tribe. We never die, we multiply.
Close your eyes. What do you see? Black. Planets are born out of black and life succumbs to it. No other colour has an emotional response quite like black. The first colour we used to paint, using animal fat and charcoal, was black. It's worn by priests, but also favoured equally by fashion designers and fascists. Black is the primordial colour, the OG. It's used in art, music, architecture, and, unsurprisingly, cars. But there's one manufacturer who's doubled down on it by producing a whole range around black. It's Rolls-Royce with their black badge models. Here they are. They started in 2016 with the Ghost and Wraith, and then 2017 with the Dawn, 2019 with the Cullinan. The black badge cars are the more performance-orientated and youthful side to the range, the alter ego to the traditional posher, stiff upper lip Rolls-Royce. They're made for the people who come to spec them in streetwear rather than suits, pay for them in crypto rather than checks. You may think this is something new for a new market, but Rolls-Royces that are big and expensive and built solely around black aren't. This is Hunt House, home to the Rolls-Royce Enthusiast Club. Since 1977, this has been a posh storage facility for all things Rolls-Royce, from archive material to memorabilia. It's also where Malcolm Tucker, Rolls-Royce's historian and walking encyclopedia, tends to hang out. He also knows a thing or two about black.
So Malcolm, thank you so much for having us here at Hunt House. When did black Rolls-Royces become a thing and why?
Well, originally, I mean, going way back in the early days of the 1930s, it was becoming just a popular fashion thing for most cars to be black, but you wouldn't call them really black badges for what we're talking about today. 2016 was the launch of the black badge range for the Rolls-Royce cars made at Goodwood at the moment. And before that, there were a couple of extras. There was two particular cars. The Duke of Gloucester in 1960 ordered a Rolls-Royce Phantom 5 limousine. And that's rather similar to the Royal car fleet that you see Majesty the Queen driving around in, that kind of car. And his speciality was to have black, shiny black on the vertical surfaces of the car, and on the horizontal surfaces, the roof, the boot and the bonnet, was matte black with a tiny back window, and he had his own mascot, which was an eagle in flight instead of the Rolls-Royce Spirit of Ecstasy. Later on, 1965, a chap called John Lennon, he ordered an all black car. Now he wanted his to be completely black, so he had black shiny paint. The wheels were painted black, the bumpers were painted black, the door handles were painted black, the windows were blacked out, which was the first time in the Western Hemisphere it happened. You did see cars with blacked out, or dark, should I say darkened windows, not totally black. In India, the Purdah cars, where the Maharajas would have dark windows for the cars that transported their wives. So they weren't allowed for religious reasons to be seen by the general public. So that's where the first darkened glass came in. But for the Western Hemisphere, the car that John Lennon had was about the first one.
So John Lennon, the man famed for having, quite a psychedelic Rolls-Royce later, was the man who officially murdered them out first.
Well, actually, I'm going to pull you up there because it was never psychedelic. It was canal art and Romany art that car was done in. There's nothing psychedelic about it if you look at it carefully. That was the black car. And then when they were getting involved with the Maharishis in India, change of thought, we want something bright, we want something to reflect what was happening with their lives at the time. So we had the car painted. It was really actually just household paint they did it in, and then hand painted on all the artwork.
Well, we may have something outside that can better John Lennon's black car, because we may have a blacker one.
That's the history of black Rolls-Royces, but what is the future? Well, it's this, the latest, the Black Badge Ghost. And not just any black Rolls-Royce, but the blackest Rolls-Royce ever spec'd. Shove that in your archive. Tough look, isn't it? It's amazing what one colour can do to take the restrained lines of the Ghost and make it a bit more potent. And where the old Ghost was a 7 Series and Gucci garbs, this is all new aluminium underpinnings. But let's talk about that black magic.
First up, paint. It's the deepest, darkest, heaviest black ever put on a Rolls-Royce. 45 kilos of the stuff slathers the car. The coach line, black and hand painted. Wheels and brakes, carbon fibre barrels, aluminium hubs, titanium fasteners. Calipers, finished in black. The Spirit Vexy and Pantheon grille, zapped with a special electrolyte to give that smoky look rather than shiny chrome. On the inside, behind these black tinted glass, is black leather. It's on the seats, the door cards, around the steering wheel, on the tables, but it's also piped with more black leather and black pillows with black Rolls-Royce motifs, but also under my feet, black lambswool from the bougiest black bar bars. There's a black headlining with black shooting stars. There's the technical fibre across the dash, in the door cards on the side here, which hides a first, the black decanter from Rolls-Royce with matching black glassware. And finally, behind the black lemniscate is a black fridge with more black champagne flutes, but no black champagne. I think we could do something about that. Welcome to Champagne, France, home of very posh drinks, perfect to fill up that very parched fridge back there, but also some fantastic roads to test whether this Rolls-Royce Ghost Black badge, the driver's car, is any good. So, has Eleanor, the good old spirit of ecstasy up front, kicked off her slippers and put on her running spikes? Well, yes, kind of, because there are lots of differences to the Ghost Black badge, but none of them are mechanical. Everything is software related. So we have the same 6.75 twin turbo V12 engine up front, but it has just had a tiny different map change, so it's got 29 horsepower more. So you're nudging 600 horsepower, plus a slight uplift in torque too. But also, the air suspension is more voluminous, as Rolls-Royce would say. What that means is they've put more air in the bags, so it doesn't roll as much. And that and the planar suspension does work. It reads the road ahead, and if you're driving more actively, it will know that, and then it will counter the roll, which it does quite effectively for a big old bus. But the one thing that does make the difference is this, low mode. Think of it as aristocratic sport button, because Rolls-Royce don't use words like sports button. Putting it in low mode tightens up the throttle, but also it changes the exhaust. It makes it slightly more raucous for a Rolls-Royce. This is no RS3 with pops and bangs, but it does make it more of a sporty feeling. And this car, as strange as it sounds to drive a Rolls-Royce faster, is enjoyable, if not a bit more oxymoronic. But hustling, 2.5 tons of 5.5 meters of land yacht around is enjoyable. And the brakes, well, they're no different to a standard Ghost, but the pedal has more bite higher up and less travel. That's something that an F1 driver asks for, not a chauffeur. And this is a quick car. It does 0 to 60 in 4.5 seconds, and with that four-wheel steer and all-wheel drive, puts its power down. So you can drive it quickly. It is fun. It is the spirited Rolls-Royce. For the drivers, well, the best one in the range, but it does become thirsty work hustling one of these up a hill. Luckily, I know somewhere that can sort that out.
This is Leclerc-Brion, a champagne house doing remarkable things on, we have to admit, an unremarkable looking street in France's bubbly district. But the real magic here isn't found on a shelf. It's hidden in an ancient subterranean cellar, 60 meters underground.
That's better. See, this isn't your normal bottle of champagne. In fact, it's another example how black has come into the fold of the luxury industry. This spent 1 year of its life 60 meters at the bottom of the ocean. Then in that very dark room. Why? Because it makes the bubbles bubblier. And it's just another example of how black has become a magnet for the luxury industry. But there's one place I know where it's prominent more than ever, and this car will fit in there perfectly. Problem is, it's a bit of a schlep away. Luckily, the Ghost hasn't lost its long-legged ability. So we better hit the road.
A 400-mile journey after a long day is something that normally give you nightmares. Not in a Rolls-Royce. The Ghost gobbles up miles like Mr. Creosote. It doesn't matter if it's massaging your kidneys on a motorway or silently winding you up a steep, beautiful alpine pass. No matter where you're driving, it has a natty ability to shrink distance. And before you know it, you're parked on an icy runway.
Here we are then, somewhere a lot colder, but where black and luxury go together like caviar and bellinis. Courchevel, 1850. Up here, the higher you get, the richer people get, and the more luxury and black luxury that you see, where there is multi-million-pound black chalets, skis covered in black, or tiny little cute fluffy black dogs. Plus, black helicopters, because ski lifts are for paupers. But how good do all these items look? It shows the mystique that comes with items and luxury black. But there's a black that is more exclusive and sought after than any other black. In fact, it's a black that's blacker than black. It's Vanta Black, and it's fascinating. In this light industrial unit, there's lots of clever people in lab coats doing amazing things because they are making the darkest man-made material on planet Earth, Vanta Black. See, where you see my jumper as being black, this is super black. But how you make it will melt your mind.
In order to find out, I needed to speak to the man who made it, a man called Ben, a fast-talking fellow who really is quite clever.
So, Vanta Black, how does it work?
Okay, so Vanta Black's a really interesting material. Imagine a forest of trees, and the trees are about 3,000 metres tall, closely packed together. Light comes into those trees, bounces around and is absorbed, and then converted to heat and dissipated through whatever the material is coated onto.
How do you make that forest of trees that suck in light?
So that's really interesting. It's based on nanomaterials. So it's essentially like sowing nano grass, okay? So we sow the seeds, we create these nano clusters of materials that are very, very, very small, thousands of times smaller than the human hair. And then we subject them to heat under very specific conditions, and we add carbon gas to it. And what happens, it grows out of these little nanoparticles to form these forest of trees. And then what you see is this super black surface because everything's arranged almost perfectly and perpendicular to the substrate, so light gets into it, almost falls into it, bounces around and is then trapped and dissipated as heat in the substrate.
So where is Vanta Black used then?
So you might be quite surprised actually, it's used in cars more than you'd think, especially with ADAS systems, automated driver assistance systems. So all the sensors on cars today need protection from sunlight to keep the car safe whilst it's driving along. And these coatings are used to protect those sensor systems all over the car. Because you know what it's like when you drive down the road and the sun comes into your eyes. Now imagine a camera system dealing with that in an autonomous mode.
But Vanta Black's not just used in autonomous systems, I've also seen it used in watches, in the art world, and you sprayed a BMW X6 black, that wasn't going to space, it's just ugly. So why did you spray it black and why did it look bizarre to everyone else?
The car was coated to see what it would look like if you took all dimensionality away from it. Even when you got up close to it, your perception of the shape and how it filled the room was very, very different.
So we've spec the blackest Rolls-Royce ever. This feels like a perfect fit to have a Vanta Black Rolls-Royce Black Badge Ghost. Surely we can go out and put it in the spray booth now. Is that something that we can do this afternoon?
I think that would be a really, really good idea, but maybe you need a bigger budget. I mean, we're talking north of 6 figures here.
Right, yeah, we don't quite have that.
But what we can do is show you this.
Wow.
An iconic shape, the Spirit of Ecstasy, coated in Vanta Black. And as you can see, what we were talking about earlier on, where the light is absorbed uniformly from all angles, this is a perfect example, because all the features are lost and your perception of how it occupies 3D space around you, because it's so black and uniformly absorbing, is very different than what you would normally expect with a conventional black paint.
It doesn't have the, you're right, that normal sculpture that you're so used to seeing. It's kind of lost in itself. It's like you can see the light being sucked into it. It's kind of got a velvety look and feel to it, or like a really posh truffle chocolate or something. So can I just take this outside and bolt it onto the front of the car now? Is that how it works? Is she going to be happy flying there?
You could, but dust would be attracted to it very quickly, and because of the contrast of dust compared to the super black surface, it would look like little diamonds.
Speckled with diamonds, that's kind of up Rolls-Royce owners' street. But if you say that I can't put it on the front of the car, maybe it'll look all right on my office desk, because gosh, she looks absolutely stunning like that. And it's the only one in the world?
Only one in the world.
Wow.
It's the only one ever done.
There you go, Vanta Black, the perfect cherry on top of our blackest Rolls-Royce ever. A reserved and shy emblem of look at me that you can't actually see. And the end of our noir journey. So, black, quite a complex thing for a relatively simple shade of paint. There's more to it than you probably thought. But it's safe to say that black isn't going out of fashion anytime soon. So don't be surprised if you see a few more Rolls-Royce models with black badges on them. They're here to stay.